Visual Attributed String is a tool for iOS and Mac developers that allows you to create stunning text effects for your apps by simply writing text and applying effects to words and paragraphs in the document like you would in any word processing application. Visual Attributed String is the most advanced what you see is what you get editor for attributed strings. In this tutorial, we are going to put together an iOS application's user interface in less than 20 minutes. Here is a brand new Visual Attributed String document. We are going to create a user interface for a fictional game called Lollipop. Let's begin by typing the title. In Visual Attributed String, you can quickly bring up the Special Characters palette by clicking on the Characters button in the toolbar. Now we are going to add a lollipop emoji character. Let's increase the font size. Now we will center the text. We'll select the text and change the font to a custom font named Lollipop. Let's change the font color to something else. Purple looks good. Now we will stroke the text black a bit. Press enter and let's type some text for some buttons. We will type text for 3 buttons titled Candy Store, Settings, and About. Let's increase the line spacing of the text. Let's make the font size of the buttons a bit smaller than the title. Now it's starting to look like we got a nice little user interface going. Let's change the background color to something other than white. Alright. Now let's go to Xcode and use this design we created in Visual Attributed String in an iOS application. Here we just created a simple, single view application project in Xcode. Now we could go to Visual Attributed String and get the attributed string code for the entire document by clicking on the Code toolbar item. That would be the preferred way to do it if we were creating a long body of text. We also could get the code to use in a Mac application if we want. But we really don't want to do that in this case, because we want to use some of the text on buttons. What's great about Visual Attributed String is we can select a portion of text and get the code for only that particular selection. Let's grab the title text. Right-click and click Code for Selection. Now use the Command-C keyboard shortcut to copy the code to the clipboard. Now in Xcode, in the ViewDidLoad method of our ViewController class, we simply paste the code. For that one line of title text, we would have had to handwrite all that code. Now let's create a label object to display the title. In the interface, we declare a label property named title label. Underneath the attributed string code we pasted, let's instantiate a label object and add it to the view hierarchy. UI label, title label, equals, UI label, alloc, init with frame, cgrect 0. Now we will assign the label's attributed text property to the attributed string that the Visual Attributed String application created for us. We also add the label as a subview to our view. Let's make the label automatically resize itself to fit the attributed string by calling size to fit on the label object. Let's set our title label property. One thing you may notice is that we did not give the label a position on screen. A good place to do this is in ViewDidLayout subviews. Let's override that method and set the title label's position. On the x-axis, we center the title label in the superview. On the y-axis, we give it a coordinate point equal to 1/2 of the title label's height. This will make the label appear at the top of the screen. Let's run the application on the iOS simulator to see how it's looking. Looks good. But I'm not sure if I like the title label's Y-coordinate position against the status bar. I'm going to use the status bar's height as a reference point to push the title label down a bit. Let's run it again and see how it's looking. Great. Now let's set up our buttons. I'm going to grab the code for our Candy Store button and copy it to the clipboard. Let's paste the code and give the attributed string and paragraph style a unique name. Now in the interface, let's declare some button properties. Here we create our Candy Store button object. We assign its attributed title to the attributed string the visual attributed string application generated for us. We add it to the view hierarchy. Call size to fit on the button so it resizes itself to fit its text. In View Layout subviews, we position the button on screen relative to the title label. Let's run the application on the iOS simulator to see how it's looking. Looks good. Now, for the other two buttons, I could go and get code for selection and visual attributed string again, but I'm actually not going to do that in this case. Since all three buttons have the same attributes, I'm going to simply create a new mutable attributed string using the init with attributed string initializer. Now I'm just going to replace the characters on the new mutable attributed string. I create the settings button the same way I created the Candy Store button. In View Layout subviews, I position the settings button relative to the Candy Store button. Let's run the application on the iOS simulator to see how it's looking. I create a mutable attributed string for the About button the same way I created it for the Settings button. I create the About button the same way I created the other two buttons. In Viewed Layout subviews, I position the About button relative to the Settings button. Let's run the application on the iOS simulator to see how it's looking. Looks good. There's one last thing missing though. The background color of our iPhone application is white. We want to use the light green background we set up in our visual attributed string document. This is very easy to do. To get the background color in visual attributed string, all we have to do is select anywhere in the document and right-click. Now select Background Color Code. We have the option to get the background color code for iOS or Mac application. Let's copy the iOS code for the background color. Now we will set the background color on our View Controller's view. In this tutorial, I showed you how to create the entire interface programmatically. In an upcoming tutorial, I will be showing you how to do the same thing using Interface Builder. Using Interface Builder, we won't have to write the code to instantiate the buttons or the title label. It is still important to understand how to create a view hierarchy programmatically. And this tutorial has hopefully given you a nice run through of visual attributed string. Visual attributed string helps us put together this nice little menu in less than 15 minutes. Visual attributed string is a great tool for iOS and Mac developers. Visual attributed string is available now on the Mac App Store.